Great, thanks, Sue. So yes, Christoph Harwood, Sustainable Green Energy. I'm also supported in this work by Morlais and also EMEC. So it's great that we got a cross-section from the industry working with government on how we can deliver revenue support. The issue really is around how the UK develops technology. We step back. Traditionally, the UK has been very good at tech innovation. We've got some great engineers, some great scientists. We develop things, and then at some stage we tend to lose our nerve. And we back off development, it goes overseas, and then we buy it later. We bring it back in. And somebody else has, yes, paid the costs of reducing that development, but also the money we pay goes away. And clearly that is something that we've seen in our industry, in the renewables industry, with wind and with solar. So what we're saying at the moment, one of the critical things that is different about marine energy is that we've got the technology development here. So around this room, we don't actually have many project developers, but we've got a lot of tech developers, and that's really important. The government has sort of recognized that. Brexit, for good or for bad, actually led to an industrial strategy like this, the first one we've seen. And the industrial strategy said there are a lot of people who voted who are not being served by globalization. And we had, first of all, a green paper, and then the white paper. And we as an industry looked at that industrial strategy and said, we can actually meet the government requirements. There's a lot we can do. And what came out of the white paper, so the white paper is much more meant to be much more definitive about action, is we can tick a number of boxes. So they got the 5 foundations: ideas, innovation, tick; people skills, engineering, STEM, that sort of stuff, tick. Infrastructure, less so. I could probably squeeze a small tick in there, but really it's then about the business environment is a good place to set up new businesses for startups. The UK wants to demonstrate it's a good place for startups. And there are a lot of startups in this room and across the sector. And the final bit is this places story. You know, my moniker, which you will hear me going on and on again, is that it's the Heineken story. Our industry reaches parts of the economy that other sectors do not reach. You're not going to get a robotics factory in Orkney. You're not going to get biotech in Anglesey. But you're sure as hell are going to get marine energy businesses in those areas. And the important thing about that is we start feeding in with the clean growth strategy. So the grand challenges that the government have come up with, in order to be part of the industrial strategy, we have to tick at least one of those boxes. And, you know, clean growth. Both words, clean growth. Growth, really important. And interestingly, where we're coming from in that is the maritime sector is also looking for a sector deal. And we're talking to them and saying, because at the moment, the maritime sector haven't got a very much a clean growth element of their growth story. And we're saying, we're absolutely, look where Scott Renewables built their SR2000. They built that at Harland and Wolff at a shipyard. Sustainable Marine Energy, we built our platform at JBA Engineering in Peterhead. It does oil and gas work. Where do we recruit people? And I look across the companies. They come out of the marine and maritime sector. So we're very much part of that story, and Britain as a maritime nation is leading this way in the development of the technology, and we're saying we need to stay in the lead, and that's really important. But we have this issue. Because I say, look, we tick all the boxes, and they go, yeah, but £300 a megawatt hour strike price. But we're hearing from Catapult, we can get down to below 100. So the government has got to say, look, we like everything you say, you tick all those boxes, but do we believe you can really do that? What is the cost of supporting that journey? And then what is the benefit? And that is why the Catapult report, as Sue said, is so important to us, because it now answers those questions. And the government, I believe, and the politicians want to support the sector. But they've got to have the evidence behind it, and of course they've got to go to Treasury and say we want to support it. So that Catapult story, and we'll come on how we're going to disseminate that in a second, is very critical. And the critical part about it is most of the time in the past, when you ask for support as an industry, we all talk TRL, Technology Readiness Level. So you look at the grants that are coming out of Innovate UK, You look at grants from other sources, which some of us have been talking about this week. If you look at those grants, they are about going from TRL 5 to TRL 7, or TRL 7 to TRL 9. But there is another story around CRL, commercial readiness levels. Commercial readiness levels came out of Australia, out of ARENA, and they said, look, there is a journey before you want to get to that golden picture of being a bankable asset class. And that's where Louise and that's where Andrew will talk about, is they want to finance us, but we've got to get up that CRL level as much as the TRL level. And that's really important. And to do that, we need revenues. We need revenue support. So it's all very nice, and a lot of our companies have had good grants, good capital grants from Innovate UK, from WEFO. But we need, to get investors into this market, we need long-term revenues. So what we've done is looked at the revenues, and this is a chart, again, I show quite a lot. And it's about us being joined up, because we've got different companies doing different things at different stages. And when the civil servants come back to us and say, you're all over the place, you all want different things, I say, no, we're not. This is where we are. We've got Wave and Tidal. Wave and Tidal, we're hearing, Steve, are at different stages in their development and need different levels of support, and it will take a different time frame. But we've also got, like other technologies, a need for smaller projects to get into the water, to develop, to get deployed. Most people are going out in single devices. We need to get arrays in the water. We need to, any of us in here in this room who did 10 megawatts, we would be jumping up and down with enthusiasm. But we also know we need to get above that, to get the costs down. So we heard from Steve that to get down to, I can't remember, 200 megawatts was to get to 150, 130. But to get down to below 100, we need to get to utility scale. So the question is the second part, because I'm going to talk about innovation PPA in a minute. The second part is how do we do utility scale once we've got these basic projects out there? Now, ideally, we would go straight to being CFD suitable. Now, Maygen tried that. They had a good crack at that. They put in for a CFD, and they didn't get it. Yeah? With wind at £57.50 is not surprising. So we're also saying there needs to be some form of bridging arrangement, some arrangement that allows us to get to larger scale projects, because the larger scale projects will bring down the cost for economies of scale. And that we don't yet have a solution for. But on Friday, I said I would start moving, as well as looking at the IPPA, I'll start looking at how we can look at that bridging arrangement. And we're looking to put together a work group on that. So if you want to be involved, let me know. But the initial ask, therefore, to government, though, is around this Innovation Power Purchase Agreement. It was part of our UK response to the industrial strategy. So it's been with BEIS. We've had some conversations with BEIS about it. I've had a civil service answer, which was, it is intriguing. So I think that is a positive. But no, there is some interest. And the important point about the Innovation PPA is that it allows us to move more quickly than, say, CFDs, where the next CFD round is next year for deployment in, I can't remember, 22, 23. So we want to try and get this up and running. So what is the Innovation Power Purchase Agreement? So it's very straightforward. A project developer arranges a PPA with a corporate or energy company. We're thinking more likely to be energy companies at the moment. They get 100% tax credit for the buyer for excess of costs over the market rates. So if a market rate is £50 a megawatt hour and we're selling at 250, that buyer is paying £200 a megawatt hour over the market rate. They can then claim that back against tax or claim a tax credit. So what we're saying is this is about using a tax rebate system to reward and support innovation. And tax rebates are much more acceptable to government than loading costs of innovation onto consumer bills, which is what the CFD does and what also does the feed-in tariff. We would say that this level would be capped and decline over time. So it would decline, though, in two ways. So there'll be an industry level cap and decline, but also any company who did 10 megawatts at the first level could not get a second bite of the cherry at that level. They would have to decline faster than the industry, because it's all about demonstrating that costs can be reduced. It's not just wave and tidal. With floating wind, if any of you read the document Friends of Floating Wind, they had that in their application to government that they would also like an IPPA at a different level, at a different size. It would, I'm colorblind, so I can't tell what that's flashing at me. I presume it's still green.
You read.
Okay. So,
No surprise.
The important thing is about it, it's about us getting out there and helping make our success, about finding customers. It's about asking industry to help pull us through, whether they are an energy company or whether they are a corporate. And the important thing is, when politicians say to us, we can't hit consumer energy bills, don't forget that 100% of people pay for their electricity, only about 50% of people pay tax. So when we're going through the tax system, we are not loading it onto the poorest of society. So what we're saying, this is the benefit of an IPPA. So there we are on a journey, we've got the OREC report, and what we're heading towards, we hope, is a mention in the budget this autumn. So we've got to go for the OREC report, we've got to get the key messages out, we've got to cascade it regionally, we've got to meet with our MPs, we've got to talk with BEIS about how this is going to work. If we do get a mention in the autumn budget, and who knows, after that there would then be a consultation on the design of the IPPA structure. But there is still a long journey here, so I'm asking everybody in this room to be prepared to put time aside and resource aside to be part of this dialogue. The same is happening in Scotland, the same is happening in the southwest, the same is happening in the Solent and Northern Ireland. So it's very important that we meet with local MPs and get up and meet with ministers. And an Anglesey Day yesterday was a very successful way of doing that. So please be there, be supporting the sector in this dialogue. So I'll leave it there and take questions later on. Thank you.